I will probably, and it says it's recording.
Yeah, I can see that here.
And I will probably do a preamble into this later. I won't do it now because I have no idea what I'm doing. But that's okay. That's part of the fun. Hello there. My name is Richard Sheridan Willis. I am the Artistic Director of the St Lawrence Shakespeare Festival in Prescott, Ontario. Thank you for watching. In this series of River Talks, I'll be talking to theatre people on their thoughts on theatre, past and present. We will be zooming in for an in-depth, informal chat about themselves, their love for theatre, and how they see it in the future. Our first guest needs no introduction to our festival audiences. He was Artistic Director of the St Lawrence Shakespeare Festival from 2005 to 2014 and is still one of the main reasons that our festival grew and flourished from its small beginnings to being one of Canadian theatre's important theatre festivals. My guest is actor, writer and director, Ian Farthing. So, I'm going to read from your bio, Ian. Welcome. Ian is well known to our local audiences and community. Ian is an actor, writer, and director. He was born in Vancouver. Although based in Vancouver, Ian undertook his professional training in the UK and worked in London for 10 years. Since returning to the West Coast, he has appeared in numerous productions with the Arts Club Theatre, Pacific Theatre, and other number of theatres in Vancouver and across BC. He has also, of course, performed at the St Lawrence Shakespeare Festival starting in 2004 and 2005. And from 2005 to 2014, he was the artistic director of the St Lawrence Shakespeare Festival, a tenure which culminated in hosting the first ever visit to Canada of Shakespeare's Globe Theatre from London as part of their Globe to Globe World Tour of Hamlet. He also received the Capital Critics Circle Award for the excellence of his contribution to theatre in 2014 and was honoured as Prescott's Citizen of the Year. Ian spent 18 months in The Sound of Music for Mervish Productions in Toronto, and he's now freelances as an actor, but mainly as a director. His most recent show at Pacific Theatre was nominated for 7 Jessie Awards. Ian is also, as I've said, a writer in the world of animation dubbing and has written the English adaptations for over 20 different series, mostly anime. As of this year, he's working as a director in the studio, directing the voice actors for the dubbing. Currently, he's working on the German show Bibi and Tina. Ian serves as an artistic advisor for Pacific Theatre in Vancouver. He's also on the board of Ottawa's Ninth Hour Theatre and Vancouver's Ace Productions. Have I left anything out?
That's quite a lot. That's more than enough.
All right. Well, I know there's more, so I want to come to that as we go on. So I suppose you were born in Vancouver. Is that where you grew up?
I was in Vancouver and BC until I was 6, and then family stuff took us to the UK. So I did all of my schooling over in the UK, first in the city of Leicester.
Oh, my goodness.
And then I went to university in Birmingham, and then I went to London for theatre school. And as you say, I stayed there for another 10 years.
So I have family in Leicester, and out of all the theatres in the UK, Leicester Haymarket was the theatre I worked at the most, as I think you know. Where did you go to school?
So I was just at the local comprehensive school.
Okay.
As you would call public school over here.
Yeah.
And interesting, the Leicester Haymarket Theatre, that's really where I got the bug about theatre. I started to work there as an usher from the age of 15. And then I also worked at the stage door, and then I worked in the box office there. And I just saw so many wonderful shows there at the time. Nancy Meckler was the artistic director early on at that time. and David Aukin. And really, that was kind of where I got that passion and inspiration of, oh my gosh, this is what I want to do. I want to be involved in this. These are the people I want to be around.
And then you went to university in Birmingham. And what did you study there?
I did drama and theatre arts. Kind of what happened was, in those late teen years, I had this bug, and I just thought, this is such a crazy idea, that nobody in my family was involved in the arts. And so where was this coming from? I don't know. And it's certainly not a serious career choice in terms of security or financial compensation or any of that sort of thing. So I kind of did a deal with God. I said, okay, if this is what I'm meant to be doing with my life, you've got to prove it to me. I need to be able to do really well in my A-levels, which are the exams at 18 in the UK. Then I need to get into one of the top 10 theatre departments at university. After that, I need to get into one of the top 10 drama schools in the UK. And then within a year of leaving drama school, I need my equity card and an agent. And I said, if all of that happens, I'll take that as a sign that this is the path I'm meant to be on. And one by one, all of those things happened, and here I am 30 years later.
Amazing. So which drama school did you go to?
The postgrad drama school was the Guildford School of Acting.
Oh, I know it well, yeah.
PSA, which is known primarily for its musical theatre, but in the postgrad part of it, we didn't do so much musical theatre. But
right, yes,
it is a passion of mine, so it was great to be again surrounded by that world.
And you saw productions at it's the Even Arnaud, isn't it, in Guildford?
Yeah, but I actually because Guildford is so close to London, it's half an hour on the train. I was up in the West End all the time. You know, I was going up at least once a week, if not twice a week, to see shows in London.
Do you remember any of the shows you saw?
Oh my gosh.
The favorite ones.
Oh, I mean, some of my top shows of all time, maybe not from that period, but certainly one of the top 5 of all time was a production of Titus Andronicus at the Royal Shakespeare Company. And I went in, I'd never seen the play, never read the play. And I looked at the program and it said, this performance will last 3 hours and 55 minutes with one intermission. And I went, oh, and then sat there and I was on the edge of my seat and the time went by like that. And this is an interesting connection coming up to how I ended up in Prescott. So I'll carry on with this if that's okay.
Yeah, please.
In that cast, playing Lavinia was an actor called Sonja Ritter. And her performance was just stunning. And she did that role for 3 years, first at Stratford, then in London, then they went on a world tour. Brian Cox was Titus.
It was a very famous production.
Yeah.
And made Brian Cox's name.
Yeah.
As an actor. Yeah.
Yeah. And so a few years later, I ended up working with Sonja in a little company called The Lion's Part, which did kind of outdoor theatre at Shakespeare's Globe and at other places. And so I got to know her quite well. Jump ahead to 2003, I get an email from a friend of our mutual friend in England saying, hey, Ian, Sonja's coming to direct a play in Canada. Why don't you go and audition? And I emailed back and said, why don't you go and audition? You're almost as close to Toronto as I am in Vancouver. And so I emailed Sonja and I said, hey, Sonja, she directed the second year at Prescott. So that would have been 2004, I think. My dates, yes. 2004, Comedy of Errors. And so I emailed Sonja and I said, Sonja, I really, I would love to work with you here in Canada, but to be honest with you, Toronto's a very long way away. It's going to cost me a lot of money to fly there. And also, we haven't seen each other in 8 years. You haven't seen my work as an actor in 10 years. I would never insist that you cast me sight unseen. So I'm not going to put that on you. However, if you're willing to say that I am seriously considering casting you, I'm willing to make the effort and expense to come to Toronto and audition. And she emailed back saying, yes, please, in capital letters. So I went into that audition kind of knowing I had a good shot at it, and it was kind of mine to lose. I had to really mess up not to get the job. And I guess I didn't. So I got in, and then that was the start of a very happy part of my history.
So was that the reason you came back to Canada?
No, in 99, I came back to Canada. Basically, I got to a point in London. It's hard work in London, not only just working as an actor, trying to survive, but also just living. Getting from A to B. It's a struggle, just so many people. And I had a lot of friends who were not in the business, and they were all doing really well. They're buying houses, cars, they had families. And I was starting to feel a little disheartened, and I didn't like how I was feeling about myself, about the sort of the materialistic feeling of wanting more. That wasn't me. And so I thought, I need to take a year out and do something different. And I also was like, perhaps acting was right for me at that time, but that doesn't mean to say it's right for you for your entire life. Perhaps it was right just for a season. And so I thought, I'm going to take a year out, do something else completely different, and at the end of the year, reassess and think about that. So I thought, where shall I go? I know I've got to get out of London because my job was working in the West End in a box office. And so a lot of my friends were in the theatre. I need to get out of London, out of that world, if I'm going to do this properly. Where shall I go? Well, I have my Canadian passport. I'll go back to Canada. Where shall I go in Canada? The only place I know is Vancouver. I'll go back to Vancouver. And so I landed, and within 2 weeks of being in Vancouver, I knew I wasn't going back to the UK. This was home. I really felt in my soul that this was where I belonged. And I got a job in an animation studio working as a production coordinator. And that is a script supervisor. And that is how my work with the animation writing came about as a result of that. I lasted in that job for a year because by the end of the year, I knew A, I wasn't going home to UK, and B, I had to get back into the theatre. It wasn't done with me yet. So
yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I did the same thing. When I first got to Canada, I was burnt out from New York, and I knew I had to get out of New York, and I'd done like 3 or 4 big parts, and we were touring, and I was completely burned out. So I took 2 years out to reassess and to say, well, I've done everything that I can think of. Do I really want to carry on? And, we were about to have children, and, was it something that I wanted to continue? And, it was. I was working in a bookshop for a while. I tried to, I tried for all sorts of jobs I couldn't get, but it's a really good thing to do. And it's interesting. I know a lot of people who make those brave choices, and 9 times out of 10, something works out for them. And you have that instinct. I knew when I left London, I went to the States, and I did the same as you again. I came across to audition. So I spent the money to go to New York and audition for this company, but I just had the overwhelming feeling I was meant to go.
Yeah.
And following your instincts or your hunches is, I think, part of the fun, isn't it? Where's it going to lead me?
There's a line in The Sound of Music which is kind of appropriate. It's like, when God closes a door, he opens a window.
So one of my favorite roles was Captain Von Trapp, but I did at Leicester Haymarket.
Oh,
I got to play it. I wasn't right for it really, but I enjoyed it, and I always used to love that line. And it's still one of my favorite musicals. I don't care what anyone says.
No.
I'm going to jump ahead to 2014, and I'll go back, but. So it was a special year for you. It was your last year as artistic director at the St Lawrence Shakespeare Festival, where you've been extremely successful. But what an exit. You were honored with a Capital Critics Circle Audrey Ashley Award for, and I quote, the excellence of his continuing contribution to theatre. You were made Prescott Citizen of the Year, and you brought the Globe's Theatre's World Tour of Hamlet, a tour where they played every country in the world. You brought them to Prescott and the St Lawrence Shakespeare Festival, and this was their only performance in Canada. So that was an amazing, amazing achievement. And I don't know if people realize how great an achievement that was, in Canada. Can you tell us how that all came about again?
Well, it was one of those fortuitous circumstances. Out of the blue, I got an email from somebody who worked at the Globe. I can't remember her name right now. Just sort of asking if we would be interested in this project. And they sent the email in November, and they were talking about coming in the following summer. And I was kind of like, well, this is very exciting, but why us? And I asked, who else have you asked in the whole of Canada? And they said, well, we asked Stratford, and we asked Soulpepper, and we asked Harbourfront in Toronto. And of course, by November, Stratford's season is all solidly booked. Everything is scheduled. There was no room to add anything else into their program. With Soulpepper, I don't know the story, but I know that they had some connection with the Globe, and perhaps there was a personal issue there that meant they weren't going to go with that. And then Harbourfront is really just a rental venue, so they weren't interested in putting up money to do this. So there was us. And I investigated more to how much it would cost, and it was going to cost us about $40,000 to bring them in for one day, because we had to pay for their travel and their fees and everything else. And I went to our board and I said, this sounds like a lot of money. It was basically 10% of our annual budget.
Right.
And I said, this is a really good opportunity to help put the St Lawrence Shakespeare Festival on the map in Canada, and to get it a little better known internationally too. But it's going to cost a lot of money. I think we can get that money back. I think this is going, if we book it, it's going to sell. But there's a risk. What do you say? They said, come back in 2 weeks. If you can raise $15,000 towards it in 2 weeks, we're going to go ahead with the whole project. So we went away. I got on the phone, the Ontario Arts Council. I got on the phone to dear Judith Caldwell. I got on the phone to a couple of other places, the town, and pitched this idea. And of course, it had to all be top secret at that point. I said, you can't tell anybody, what this is about until it all happens. And we came through. I think we managed to get commitments for $20,000 by the end of that 2 weeks. So then it was just go ahead. And the day we had the press conference in January to announce the thing was probably one of the most emotional days of my life, because the excitement in that room was palpable. Everybody knew this was something big, and we had a live link to London to talk about with Tom from London to talk about the project and to announce it. And then when we put the tickets on sale on Shakespeare's birthday, the two shows, 1,200 tickets sold out in 47 minutes.
Oh my word. That's incredible.
And in the end, we did make a profit on the show on that day. It was a heck of a lot of work to put to host them and to get up all the pieces of the puzzle in place, but boy, was it worth it. Yeah. And we actually, there was just a week before they were due to arrive, we had a nightmare situation. We had booked their tickets for all the cast to fly from Chicago to Ottawa, and they had been given the manifest because they got all these huge trunks of their props and costumes, and it's because they're traveling around the world. They have very detailed manifests of what's in them and the sizes of the trunks, very detailed. And United had all of that. I think it was 2 weeks before they were due to come. I got an innocuous email from United saying, the flight, blah, 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 from Chicago to Ottawa is not able to carry luggage over this size. Please find alternative methods to transport things. And I just went, what? We can't risk not having all of the trunks arrive. And so we went into panic mode. I was on the phone with United to say, well, how can you do this to us? We booked this. You knew about this. And they said, well, you could always just, put it on the next, split it, have some on one flight, some on the next flight. I said, I can't risk that. The show's the next day.
Yeah.
And then one of our sponsors, Strada Ferris International, who are customs brokers, came to our rescue. And they, I was calling everybody, any ideas? How can we do this? And they said, we can deal with this. We'll book a truck. We had to pay for it. We paid cost, though. They didn't charge us a profit on it. And they picked the stuff up in a truck in Chicago, drove it to Ogdensburg. And on the Friday, I drove across in our van that they'd lent us to pick the stuff up in Ogdensburg from their depot there to drive it across into Canada. And we got to the border, and of course these trunks are filled with very odd things. There are swords, there are odd-shaped props which a scanner would wonder what they are. So I was really worried that it would get caught up in customs at the border there. So we got to the desk, and I was very nervous and said hello. We got pulled over when we went to drive through. So then I went in, and she said hello. I said hello, and she said, "Don't worry, you're Ian from the Shakespeare Festival, aren't you? The stuff for Hamlet? Don't worry, we'll just get through." And she went, and we had to break into one of the trunks just so she could say she'd done her job in checking. But the moment she said that, she used to come with her mother for her birthday every summer. That was her mother's birthday treat, to come to the festival. And it was just like, it was a heaven-sent appointment. I just felt that relief just go, and we were in, and it was a beautiful sunny day, and it was a fantastic weekend.
Yeah, that's a great story. And I know it was, and I know they had a tremendous time. I know that from friends back in England.
Yeah, good.
Jumping through when you were artistic director, how did that come about? Because you've been acting there, and I wondered if they'd approached you or you. Yeah,
I'd been there for 2 years as an actor, and then it really just came out of the blue. I got an email from Ken Durand Sr., who was chair of the board at the time, just saying, because Deb Smith was leaving, just saying, would I be interested? I think Molly Lyons had suggested that I might be a good fit for the role, but I had never even considered doing that sort of job. And even though I'd had all this training in England, my first professional Shakespeare show was in Prescott in the Comedy of Errors in 2004. So to be asked to be artistic director when I'd done I'd done one in Vancouver by then, but 3 Shakespeare shows in my life, it was kind of, So I took 2 or 3 weeks to think about it, and I asked lots of questions of friends, and in the end I thought, what have I got to lose? Let's give it a go. And give it a go I did.
You did. It was early days, and you built it up. I was going to ask you, and I forgot to ask you about this, but I know you have a love for musical theatre, but you also obviously have a love for Shakespeare. I mean, before you came to the festival, you had a love. I mean, goodness, you went to Titus Andronicus, which was 3.5 hours long, although it was a great production, but still not the easiest play to go and see. Where did you first get the Shakespeare bug?
I think it was at the Leicester Haymarket, actually, Nancy Meckler's production of Twelfth Night. You probably know half of the people who were in it. Nick Stafford. Anyway, people here won't know any of the names. So, right. But it was just a production that was just so clear. The story was clear. I didn't feel like I was watching oldie worldy Shakespeare. Everything felt like it was happening right now here in this moment. And to me, that's a yardstick by which I measure Shakespeare productions when I see them and when I'm working on them. You know, one of the most we get a lot of comments in Prescott from audiences, but one of the comments that I heard probably 4 or 5 separate times from different people over the years I was there was, who wrote the modern adaptation? And to me, that was just the greatest honor to know that we have done our job in telling the story clearly, because it wasn't a modern adaptation. We were using Shakespeare's words. Just if you have actors who know how to speak them and, you know, a director who knows how to tell a story clearly, then it's going to feel like it's happening here and now. And that's what I strive for in any production, actually, but particularly in Shakespeare.
Yeah, and you have to be clear in the outdoor amphitheater because there are so many distractions. You have to make it accessible. So that brings me to the next question, because people often come up to me and say that their favorite production at Prescott was Trouble on Dibble Street.
We'll say Mary Trapp on you if you run. A nut hook humor on me, and that's the very notice. What the devil's he saying?
And you liked Upper Canada College?
Oh yes, you know, it's all men there.
Yes, I've heard that.
When I heard you were receiving suitors and that, I thought about courting you, penniless as I am.
A man was taken out of my house yesterday in this basket.
Which is an adaptation by John Lazarus, who came to visit the other day. We had a chat in the amphitheater.
Oh, great.
Of The Merry Wives of Windsor. So I wondered, and this I think was the first time that you had done that, I believe, and I wondered why you went for an adaptation of The Merry Wives of Windsor rather than using Shakespeare's words.
That was 2010 was the 200th anniversary of the town of Prescott being whatever incorporated, I guess it was their big 200th anniversary. And so we wanted to play a part in the town's celebrations that year of the bicentennial. And I think it was the board and me. I've always been a great proponent of new work and encouraging new work. And I actually think it was Craig Walker who just put the bug in my ear saying, "Do you think it'd be a good idea to adapt something for this?" And I went, you know what, I love that. And also because I know that granting bodies love you to be producing new work. That was one of the things we were hearing, doing Shakespeare is not always great for getting grant money. So if we could be seen to be also creating new work, new Canadian work, then that would bode us well in the future. And so then I just kind of tentatively pitched this idea to John Lazarus about adapting The Merry Wives of Windsor, but making it The Merry Wives of Prescott. And he at first thought it was a bit of a silly idea, but then he thought about it more, and it kind of intrigued him more. And the more he thought about it, the more he liked it, and the more ideas came forward. And he began to see all sorts of little links between the Windsor of Shakespeare's play and the Prescott of 1910, which is when we said it. And so that started a very happy collaboration, which turned turned into a good hit show for us.
Yeah, I mean they still talk about it, and it's huge. We have to bring it back one day. Talking about new works, you also brought in the Sunday night shows as they were. We have the Monday Night Live, which is a descendant from those shows. How did the Sunday night shows get started?
Well, there used to be a Sunday afternoon, and it was just, when you have a whole group of actors stuck together, they've all got shows that they want to do or work that they want to do. It was an opportunity for the kids in our young artist training program to showcase their work at the end of their week's training with us. And it was just really to try and help make this into a full festival rather than just one or two plays and that's it. If we wanted to try and make it a whole summer actual festival, we needed to have all these other events added in. And then we started to be able to do, play readings of new plays that were related to Shakespeare or that were written by members of the company or, any sort of connection with us. And then we just sort of started to expand it and bringing in people from outside, like the Sonnet Man who came up from the States to do his hip-hop Shakespeare, which is an awesome experience, and other beautiful shows like that.
Because I'm concentrating on what the different roles are for people. I mean, that's what this series is about. Can you tell everyone what an artistic director does, what their role is? Or I know you had many crossovers into many roles, but how would you describe what an artistic director, what their role is?
What does an AD do? Let me count the ways. Particularly in a smaller organization like Prescott, there's so many hats. But basically, you are the face of the festival. You are the face of that whatever theatre company you're the artistic director for. It's your job. You're the one who's carrying the torch of the mission and the mandate. You're the one who is selecting which plays you're going to be doing for a season. You're the one who is ultimately responsible for choosing which directors and which actors are going to be performing or working at your theatre. And there's also all the boring stuff like all the fundraising that goes along with that, But that can also be fun too. I liked to try as much as I could to put the fun in fundraising. Yes,
I've heard. I'm always very envious. What would you say was your most challenging moment as artistic director?
Ooh.
Would it have been the Globe and the Manifesto?
No, challenge. It was a challenge, but
at the time,
an exciting challenge. I guess that moment we heard that the luggage wasn't coming would have been a real challenge. But I think there was probably in the earlier years when we're in the middle of the run of the shows in the summer, and you don't know if you can make payroll on Thursday. That kept me up at nights. That got easier as time went on because you realize that, yes, in the end, people will get paid by hook or by crook. But that was a worry in the earlier years, particularly, just the continued finances of the festival.
Yes.
Any theatre has that struggle, some to a larger extent than others. But yeah. I guess in terms of challenges, I mean, everything else is just sort of exciting challenges, artistic challenges, or, losing your Lady M and then having to find somebody else, and we end up with Carrie Ann Doherty. So,
There you go. It was a wonderful Lady M.
Yeah.
I saw it. Yes, I try and leave all the worrying to the general manager.
Right.
And sleep peacefully. But I try not to, because I know that it would keep me up at night if I thought about it too much.
Yeah.
That's part of the fun of being an AD. One of the other questions I wanted to ask, with your, I know you're directing mostly now, but as an actor, what was your favorite role? It doesn't have to be at the St Lawrence Shakespeare Festival. I was just interested in Would you say what?
I mean, when I was doing the Sound of Music in Toronto, I was one of the captain on Trapp understudies. So the times I got to go on for that in such a big production was a real special moment. But other favorite roles, I don't know. It's more shows than particular roles for me. I guess that's why I think I'm better as a director than an actor, because I like to look at the whole. I'm not really about me and what I'm doing. But I remember there's a very funny comedy by Larry Shue called The Foreigner, and that was one of the first shows I did in Vancouver, and I played the English guy Froggy, and it wasn't really the role, but it's just the amount of laughter that role and that play brings out of the audience. There's no better feeling in the world when you're saying these lines and people are just doubling over with helpless laughter at what you're doing. I just love being in that sort of situation. If you can make people feel like that, that's what any theater that I do. I want to make people feel something, whether it's laughter or whether you hit them in the gut because it's so intense, or whether you make them really think about a subject that they've not thought about before, in a way that they've not thought about before, or you make them cry because it's so moving. We need more emotion in this world.
Well, we've got quite a bit of it at the moment, but it's probably there's a lot of the wrong emotions going on.
Maybe we need more catharsis in this world. How about that?
One of the challenges I find, and I've come to directing late, but one of the challenges I find is the casting process. Did you enjoy that, or did you find...
loved it? I love it. I really love it. Partly because I love helping people to bring their best. I love being able to help people to come into an audition and go out feeling, oh, wow, I had a good time in there, or I learned this, or something. So no audition is wasted with an actor. I love to spend time with each one when I can. And I just love soaking up what everybody can bring into the room. Everybody brings such a different take to their character that I find fascinating. And just finding out what people can do, and to meet people and to find out what they're like as people. I'm just naturally curious. And
well,
so that's
I think it's very important. Yeah, and it's also very important if you've got 10 weeks with the person. That's why I spent at least 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
One, but certainly when I could, so you get to work with them, and you get a sense of what they're like when they're a little more relaxed.
Kind of like a blind date.
It kind of is, yeah, speed dating.
Are we going to be going on a 10-week relationship? Particularly in Prescott, when you're not only working together, but you're living in this small town together for 10 weeks. You need to find the right people for that. You can't just have the most brilliant actors, because they may not enjoy being in that small community under each other's shoes all the time. Some people love it and thrive on that, and you want to have people who are going to blossom in that environment for the sake of everybody, not just the company, but also for the town itself.
Yes, and it's a very special town in that respect that I hadn't witnessed anywhere else that I'd been, that a community would welcome actors and Shakespeare with such open arms,
mm-hmm.
and really were passionate about the actors who came in, and there's all these parties and events for them, and you have to tell the actors that that's what it is. You're coming to the festival, but you're also coming to the town. There's a lot of talk at the moment about, lots of things, but I wondered with Shakespeare if you felt he was, I know you're a great lover because you've left a lot of the books that you've had in the office. And I wondered if you could tell us why, and well, if you do, that he is still relevant as a dead white male author of over 400 years ago. whether he's still relevant in today's world.
The stories he tells are still relevant. You know, we often look back at classic stories to get inspiration for current times. And there's that old saying, there's nothing new under the sun. There's always some story that somebody's told before in another form. And sometimes when you're looking at a story that's taken away from the present day, we get a stronger perspective on its relevance to today than if it's set now. You know, you can see it through a different lens. But it's also just the language. It's just so fun, and people get scared by the language, saying, "Oh, I don't understand it." But you listen to some of these pundits on TV, political pundits or economic pundits, spouting jargon that I haven't got a clue, but I kind of get the gist of what they're talking about. So that's how I compare it to listening to Shakespeare. If you don't understand every word, so what? You get the gist of it. You know what the emotion is that they're talking about. And what, I was going to say something else really profound there, and it's just gone out of my head. Anyway.
No, I think that's it. I think, yeah, I mean, I agree completely. I started watching Shakespeare when I was 5 years old, and it was like music. It was, I mean, you didn't have to understand it, but you understood it.
Yeah, yeah.
And the more you listened, the more you would understand. And it's music, it's heightened, and that's what theater is. You know, if you can see it in your living room, it's not theater, it's something else. Would you say that the Globe was your greatest achievement as artistic director, or is there something else?
No, I think really just seeing the growth of the festival over that 10 years and how the community was embedded within that growth, and how the festival was not just the St Lawrence Shakespeare Festival. It was Prescott's Shakespeare Festival. There was a sense of ownership over this artistic endeavor. This is ours. These are our actors. These are our shows. Come to Prescott. We're proud of this. You know, we want to show this off. And I think that kind of buy-in from the community is quite rare. And I think that's something that needs to be treasured. And the people who are in Prescott need to know what a gift that is that they've given those of us that are working at the festival, to know that we have that support. And it's not just financial support, it's the emotional support, it's the cheerleading, you know, the telling your friends and shouting about the St. Lawrence Shakespeare Festival across the country, across the world now with social media, you know. And to have that level of support in a community is, as I said, very rare. And I think that's something I'm very proud that I was able to help build up.
Hopefully next year we'll be together again, and you're coming to play Bottom in The Dream and one of the fathers in the Fantastics, which I was really looking forward to. And I'm now looking forward to next year. Love to see your Bottom. The old joke. But I wondered how have you had any thoughts on theatre in this pandemic world? Will it change for the better? Or yes, just in general, how you see things going for theatre, because it is a dark time.
It is. Things are going to change, whether it's for the better or whether it's just change. I don't know. In Vancouver, the period of COVID, there's all the issues with health issues with COVID that are going to have an impact on theatre, how we do theatre. There's talk about getting rid of what we call 10 out of 12 rehearsal days, 12-hour rehearsal days, because that's just exhausting. And then if you're exhausted, you're going to get sick. So that's a healthy thing. There's talk of reducing the rehearsal period to just 5-day weeks rather than 6-day weeks, just to help actors keep their health while they're working. There's also issues now that we're talking about if an actor gets a cold Whereas before, if you're sick, the show must go on and you come in to work. But not anymore. The show can't go on if somebody's sick. You don't want to risk getting everybody else sick, which we always did, you know. So that's going to have an impact. Do we have to have understudies for every single role in the show? Or do we just cancel a show if somebody's off? All of these are going to have financial ramifications for theaters, which are going to be tricky to navigate. But one of the other changes that's come about indirectly, which is very interesting, I don't know if it's been the same in Ontario as it has been in BC, but this time of COVID has led to a lot of people having time to reflect on things. And the issues that have been raised by the Black Lives Matter movement have had a very strong impact here in Vancouver. And some of the theaters are having to deal with restructuring their whole system of how they create theater and how they cast theater. The whole systemic racism thing is having to be addressed, whereas there wasn't time to address it because we were all too busy trying to get the next show on. And I think that's going to have a very strong influence and impact on how we do theater in the future. On quite a basic level. But I'm not an artistic director right now, so I don't really have to worry too much about the hows and whys, but I'm trying to stay on top of the discussion so that I can at least have a useful contribution if I'm asked. I'm quite involved at Pacific Theatre here in Vancouver, and so I have been involved in that sort of work that we have to do as white and male artistic directors or theater makers. You know, how do we make space for marginalized communities in our theaters and our theater making? And I think it's a bigger question because I think it has to go all the way down through the generations, right to the point of where people are doing theater at school. You know, because if they're not getting involved with it at that stage, they're not going to go on to get professional training and then have the skills in which to compete on an equal level in the marketplace. So it's going to be a couple of generations before things are really righted, I think. But we're making steps. That's all we can do. We can take the steps that we can take, and eventually we'll become an army and we can take over and make new space for everybody to be here equally.
It's great. One last thing. You are hugely popular in Prescott, Rockville, the surrounding areas. Do you have a message for your many, many friends here?
I miss you. But I build on what I said earlier. Know what a treasure you have here in Prescott and make the most of it. Don't let it disappear. We need this festival. Prescott needs this festival. You need this festival. And so do whatever you can to keep it going.
Thank you very much, Ian. Thanks a lot for doing this.
Thank you.